I guarantee you, as a black person, somebody leaned over at that funeral and said, "Who did the body?" You need to pee. What is going on, everybody? RJ here from the Silver Site, and today I'm going to be reviewing Season 3, Episode 2, When We Go, of the hit show on MGM Plus, From. Now, I'm not going to hold you. This episode is going to be a little emotional. It deals with the aftermath of Kenny's mother. We see Tabitha in the real world, Fatima's pregnancy and her pregnancy cravings. A lot happened this episode, but the meat of the story really is Kenny and dealing with the death of his mom, Tian Chen, who is loved by the entire town. And for me, it really was an emotional episode. If you watch the lives that I did for Season 2, as well as the cast interviews, go check those out. If you watch the lives that I did for Season 2, you'll know that I'm not a fan of Kenny. Nobody in From ever has an easy death. And the worst case scenario so far is death by hands of the monsters. These monsters are not merciful, they're not humane, they don't care, and they're brutal. They're straight up brutal. And we see, as we saw last episode, they're also smart. And for me, what ate me, oh God, that was terrible. Shouldn't have said that. For me, what got me from the inside, like what really tugged on my heartstrings, was seeing that man's reaction to the death of his mother. But we're going to get into that later. So first I want to start with, Jim and his family. So after Kenny and Jim get back and, show the town that they have food and that there's, plenty of it, more where that came from, Jim goes home and he's kind of dealing with Julie. And so he walks in the house and almost immediately Julie's like on his ass. And I'm like, bro, relax. Like, we know you've been through a lot and stuff like that, but just her the energy she has for her father, granted it may be deserved, but it's just like, if you're gonna be a jerk and be mad at the world, be mad at the world. Just don't come home and take it out on your family. And I feel like sometimes we take our family for granted and we will give them the worst of our personality, worst of our energy, because we know they can take it. But I just felt like, express yourself, but like, I don't know. It was a little weird and it was a little aggressive for my taste. But long story short, she tells Jim that she's a little upset, not a little upset, she's furious because when Thomas died, Jim checked out. And and also you have to understand from a parent's perspective, maybe he didn't have the tools necessary to deal with the death of his child. But I really felt like this could have been a conversation they had before they got here, but I get it. Things happen. Anyway, so she's telling him that she was upset because he checked out and she had to be there for Ethan and she had to deal with him crying and, really step up and be a parent when she didn't want to. That wasn't her job to have to be there for Ethan. She, if anything, she needed her parents to be there for her father to be there for her, and he wasn't. And I'll give Jim all the credit in the world because he took it like a champ, took it on the chin. And, he apologized and he said he was going to get his shit together. And hopefully he does. But like I said, this is something that I understand where Julie's coming from, but I also can empathize with Jim because he went through a lot too. And checking out may not have been the best way of dealing with things, but certain fathers, especially, certain people, especially fathers, especially men, don't have those tools, to kind of help guide their families through that. Not to say that that's an excuse, but I don't know. I just wish Julie would have been a little more easier on him or a little more verbal without like just being a jerk about it. Hopefully she comes around, but we'll see. But I think a big part of her turnaround is going to be Sarah. So she actually goes and she talks to Sarah because we don't know what she saw in that trance just yet. We have no idea what she saw when she was in that state. But she goes to Sarah and she says she doesn't want to end up like Sarah, which was kind of shady. But I get it, whatever. Sarah, what I like about her, she's been ostracized for the past few seasons. And in this episode, we kind of see the possibility of Julie being a bridge to her being back in the fold in the town. We know what Sarah did these last two seasons. I'm not going to go and recap that. But whatever happened to her the last season, I guess she slowly started to come back to normal. But what that doesn't do is excuse your past behavior. And I think that extending that olive branch to Julie and letting her know that she's there, she wants to talk, is going to be detrimental later on into bringing Sarah back into. I'm looking forward to what that friendship, what that connection is going to bring. I'm going to talk about something a little later on, but put a pin in that because that's going to be important. The connection between just people in the town and communicating with each other. So also during this episode, we're dealing with Fatima's pregnancy. She is sick. She's losing teeth. She can't keep anything down. She looks awful. She feels awful. And Ellis is trying to be a good husband and comforting her and telling her we need to go see the doctor. Something may be wrong, or they're a young couple, they're pregnant, and they're in somewhere where it's probably the worst place to have a baby. Honestly, I don't know what it is about zombie apocalypse or dangerous situations that makes people want to have sex and not pull out. Don't understand it. Hey, do you? But in a situation like this, a child, in my opinion, is the last thing you want to bring into this world, especially where you're at right now. But hey, more power to you. So they go to check on the baby. They go to that, I guess the medical ward or whatever you call it. I was about to say apothecary like it's the 1700s, but they go there and they talk to, I guess I want to say her name is Marielle. I can't remember. It escapes me at the moment. But they talk to Marielle, and I don't know how she knows this, but she says the baby's fine. From my understanding, she just put her hand on the stomach and checked the pulse, and she said the baby was fine. Cool, whatever. So they go to head back to Colony House, and I want to say Ellis is going to talk to Boyd or something, and so Fatima decides to go in the house. But as she's going in the house, before she goes in, she stops, and I guess she must have smelled the rotten fruit, and they're about to compost it because it's rotten. It's no good. You can't eat it. There's literally nothing you can do with this fruit at this point, but hope that you can compost it, and turn the soil. I listen. I get you are hungry. I understand it. However, I'm the type to where if I see a little bit of brown on something, a little bit of gray, I'm not eating it. But that's just me. Fatima may be a little different. I don't know. I understand that there are conditions that pregnant women have to where sometimes they crave weird things. My friend from first grade's mother had a craving for dirt when she was pregnant. I don't know. I'd eat dirt before I ate rotten fruit. But the way Fatima was fucking that food up, you would have thought she was at Golden Corral or something. When I tell you she was devouring it, and I understand she hadn't eaten in 3 days, and to her it was good, it was nourishing because that's what her body was craving. You know, she's pregnant. I don't know, man. I've seen some gross things, but that was like, ugh. But hey, get it how you can. I guess you got to get the nourishment somehow. Another part I want to talk about was Boyd tells Ellis like he's gonna catch a monster. Now, here's my thing. The last time you messed with a monster, they stepped up their game and lured you out. We don't know how smart these monsters are. We know what they're capable of, but we haven't seen everything that they're capable of yet. So for Boyd to want to hatch this plan to kill to catch a monster, man, I don't know if I want to be a part of it. Matter of fact, can I be on the monster side? Can I join y'all? Because I don't see what y'all capable of. Turn me at this point. I'll be a sleeper agent. I don't know if I want to go against these monsters, but I don't know. I trust Boyd as a leader, but I don't trust that he's smarter or stronger or can put an end to these monsters. I don't know. I wouldn't want any parts of it if I was Ellis. Hey, that's your dad, and some people follow their parents over a cliff. Not me. Tabitha in the real world. Now, don't get me wrong. I love fan theories. I do. But some of you guys are really reaching, and it shows because after season 2, we saw Tabitha in the real world, and y'all were talking about, oh, it's a lab experiment, and she's in the lab, and this is all a dream, and this is exactly why I say chill out and watch the show, because the theories are fun and they're great and all, but some of y'all really be taking your theories serious, and you end up looking crazy. So no, Tabitha was not in the lab; she was in the hospital, and in the hospital, you know, when she leaves the hospital, she goes see Victor's dad. Now, in this episode, we see her waking up on Victor's father's couch. Apparently, she must have passed out from exhaustion or something because she wakes up and Victor's dad is kind of holding a gun and he wants to know, like, yo, where'd you get my son's lunchbox? To be honest with you, she's lucky something else didn't happen, because if you show up with my missing son's lunchbox and you have my address on it and you're not making any sense, the cops are coming in. I don't care what you say. But somehow, one way or another, she manages to convince this man that she's not lying by saying she was hearing voices and she ended up in a place. And it brings up a memory that of Miranda, Victor's mom, to where they did acid one night. And ever since they did the acid, Miranda hadn't been right. Now, if there's any reason for you to not do drugs, it's so you don't hear voices and end up in that town. So they start talking, and Victor's dad, and I'm so sorry, I can't recall the gentleman's name right now, so I'm going to refer to him as Victor's dad. So Victor's dad, you know, is kind of talking to Tabitha, and she shows him all of the paintings that Miranda did. Now, these are paintings of the ghosts, the town, the scenery, the children, the monsters, basically everything on the title card that we've seen so far, Miranda has drawn. And it kind of, I'm not gonna lie, like it kind of freaked me out, man, because I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting there to be a link between Victor's mother and Tabitha. And so we get to a point where he's saying that Tabitha told him that she was chosen to free these people from this town. Now, I understand love is love, baby, but I don't know. You start talking about you were chosen one, and there's a town where kids are trapped, and there's a lighthouse, baby. You got to get locked up. You need a straitjacket and padded walls. He loved his wife, and I guess he stuck by her until she disappeared. I really enjoyed the monologue at the end. Not at the end, but as they were talking about the town and the connection between Victor's mother and Tabitha. I really liked what they were saying. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. She painted the things from the town about how it's everywhere and nowhere, and you can never leave, and people there are lost and afraid of living in an unescapable nightmare, and they're holding on to hope. And I love how they kind of overlaid that over Tien Chen's funeral, and just kind of showed how bottled this whole. It really made me realize how bottled this whole series feels. As big as the town is, as big as the world is, essentially these people will never see the light of day as far as like going home. And for these people, Tabitha getting out is a light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't necessarily know if that light is bright enough to free everybody. At least not right now. I understand holding on to hope, but as you can see, with Donna, and she's unraveling this season and she's losing hope. It's really dwindling, and I think that hope is the only thing that's going to keep them alive. But as you can see with the death of Tina and Chen, and everything going on, and there's not a single thing about this town that feels good. That feels like they're gonna get out of there. Here's the meat of the story of this episode. Kenny learns about the death of his mother, and I'm not a fan of Kenny. Like I said, if you watched the lives from earlier, I never rocked with Kenny, never did. Not a fan, 0 out of 10. But I feel like anyone who loves their mother can relate to this. No one in that town ever dies peacefully. Everyone in that town has died violently. So when Kenny first heard the news, of course your mind automatically goes to the worst. And when he found out that his mother passed away, you could almost feel the hope kind of drain out of his body. You could see just like the layers of like sadness, distress, anger. You could kind of just see that in his emotions. And I think that this is one of those situations to where I'm scared of what Kenny is going to turn into. So he goes in the diner, and he's trying to mourn to death, and Christy comes in to kind of comfort him, but he needs a minute. And it's understandable. Sometimes you don't want a hug, sometimes you don't want to be comforted. You want to just kind of like process and grieve and things like that. So she gives him the time to grieve, and she leaves him alone after because he wants to go see his mother, but he doesn't want to see his mother in the same shape that he saw his father in, because now that's all he can think about in terms of his father. So he asks Christy, can she go do the body? So Christy agrees to go do the body. She leaves. And when I tell you, okay, it's not funny. I swear it's not. But this is how you know these monsters are petty. Y'all just killed this man's mom. And I'm not saying they control the radio, but somebody in that town, some entity, some evil force has control over that radio. And out of all the songs to play after you've killed this man's mother is Celebration, Celebrate Good Times Come On, I would have flipped that whole diner over. Not just the table, I would have went outside and literally put my hands under the asphalt and flipped the diner over. I don't know how Kenny did that. Listen, that was petty. She didn't die an easy death. We saw it. It was gruesome. We saw the flashbacks. And another small part of, this whole thing that I thought was a nice touch was the fact that Sarah brought a dress to Christy for when she was doing the body, for her to wear, that she was going to wear when they all went home. And I thought it was a beautiful touch that Sarah, would do something so sweet. And I think it's a good way for her to get back in the graces of everybody slowly but surely. Because grace is something that has to be earned. Redemption is something that, you have to work for. And I think that her doing little things, when it's never going to undo the harm that she did. But I do think it'll ease people into forgiving her. Now, meanwhile, at this point, Kenny's ready to burn this mother to the ground. And I'm right there with you, dog. I'm here with you on that. So he goes and gets the alcohol, and he goes to the thing, and Boyd follows him. And he's a mess right now. And it's something that I feel like I understand where Kenny's coming from. At that point, you're not really thinking. You don't care if the monsters, run out on fire and eat you alive while they're flaming. You just want revenge for your mother. They did her dirty. She didn't die easily. And what ends up stopping Kenny from doing that, because we don't know the consequences. We are just finding out that the monsters will get their lick back. And so when Boyd talks about Tien Chen's death with Kenny, and how she held on, and she didn't turn away from him, and she kept repeating something in the native language, and Kenny translates it, and it says, "Take care of him. He'll be alone now." Bro, listen. I'm about to act a fool at the funeral. I'm about to be falling over the casket. I knew when he was chanting that when they got him out the barn. I was curious as to what it was, and I knew he was repeating whatever her last words were, so that way he could deliver that message to Kenny. But I just think it was such a beautiful touch, and the way that Boyd let Kenny know, like, hey, she told me to be here for you and take care of you because you're gonna be alone now. And just seeing Kenny break down after hearing the message that his mother delivered to Boyd, so that shit was deep. But they end up not going into the tunnel, rightfully so. And they go to the funeral, Tien Chen, and Ethan brings, a blanket so that when she won't be cold, which is a sweet touch. It just overall was a really, really heart-wrenching, sad episode. And it's one of those things that I feel is going to change the course of the show. Even though Tien Chen didn't have a big part, just the things that she brought to the cast and the things she brought to the show, the character, especially character-wise, it's not going to be forgotten. And one thing I do want to talk about from is not an issue I have from a writing standpoint, but a character standpoint. I just feel like in this situation, why aren't y'all sharing information? Why doesn't everybody know everything? Why isn't there a meeting once a week to figure out what you've learned or to give ideas or suggestions? I feel like people are holding on to bits of information like it's currency, like you're in jail bartering with cigarettes. Share the damn information. Y'all are all trapped in the town. If you see something, say something. That's my only critique about the townspeople. I just feel like if normal people were in that situation, we would be telling everybody what we saw. I would do whatever I had to do as far as sharing information to make sure that we all can get out of here as fast as possible. But still, people want to hold on to stuff, and it's something that I just do not understand. But overall, I really enjoyed this week's episode. Shout out to MGM for the screeners. Definitely really appreciate you guys looking out for me. That's all I have to say about episode 2, season 3, episode 2, when we go from. With that being said, let me know what you thought about the episode down below in the comments. Let me know what your favorite From theories are. Let me know what you think about Tabitha, Victor's mom, Miranda, and what she saw. How do you think it connects to the town? Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Later days.